Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is Food and Our Emotions. We're going to be discussing how longevity is related to genetics versus our behavior. And the reason for this topic is I actually was looking at a clip over on Instagram from the Howard Stern show, and there's a doctor on there who was talking about genetics versus our behavior. And so I'm not going to give the answer, but think about it. What percentage of our longevity is directly related to genetics? So people say, oh, it's in the genes. She has good genes. He has good genes. And that's why they're living a longer, healthier life. Think about it and come up with a percentage, and we'll be checking back with you. We have a super show for you today because the star of our show is here, Mr. red.olaughlin, and he has a book launch release that is today. We're going to be talking about that. And we have a special guest who's also one of our team members and a dear friend, Diane Floyd-Blame. Let's bring her out. Let's bring out Red and Diane. Hello.
Hi, guys. Great to join you.
Howdy, y'all.
So happy to see you both here together. It's like a family reunion, isn't it?
Yes,
Are you back home now again, Diane?
Yes, I am. Thank you for asking.
I've seen your pictures all over Facebook of all the places you've been here recently.
Thanks.
Did visit with the grandkids?
Yes, it was lovely. Thank you for asking. You can't get enough of that, can you?
There are sometimes you cannot get enough, and there's sometimes there's too much.
And, it relates to food too, what kids eat. So
it does.
Yeah, that's true. Especially when there's a big get together and maybe you've decided that you are going to be eating certain foods. You're not eating certain foods. You're eating at a certain time. I know, especially with intermittent fasting, that can really be an issue when people are used to eating later and you're trying to get it into a small window. But before we get into our topic about genetics versus our behavior, I'd love for each of us to share a little bit about our relationship with food. And I'll just give an example. I really feel that most of my life I have tormented myself. And we had a guest on, Red. We had Trish Robbins show on our last show. And she said something that really made an impact, which is if you think about a stone that is in a current or it's washed up on the beach, a shell, whatever it is, and the water keeps hitting it over and over and over again, it starts to just crumble at some point, or pieces of it are knocked off. And I started thinking that that's really how I've been when it comes to my weight and my relationship with food. Every single day I have a conversation with myself. You're not going to eat that today, are you? You should eat that. You should exercise. I drive myself crazy, and it's every single day, and it's been going on for decades. So that's my share. Red, what about you?
I eat every day, most of the time. There are some times that I do go for a longer period of time without eating. I try to do a 72-hour fast every month. And most of the time I do. Sometimes that 72 turns into 100, 150. I think last year for Lent, to start the Lent, I did 220 days of fast. And then in Lent, I did 150 days of 150 hours, 220 hours, 150 hours of fast, not days. Although the longest fast on record, I think, is 378 days.
Wow.
Days, as in over a year.
Amazing.
But that was a guy in England that was severely overweight, and they put him on a managed program where he was constantly, anyway, it doesn't matter, but he did fast for over a year and lost a couple 100 pounds and stuff. But anyway, the the foods that I ate earlier in my life were things that you wouldn't think would be very healthy. Double cheeseburgers and bacon and eggs and everything. And ironically, when I joined the military, my cholesterol was around 104 total cholesterol, 104, and it stayed that way for decades. Uh, I think for me right now, if I had a high cholesterol, it'd be about 160 total. But it's again, your body produces something if you don't eat something. But regardless, that's a genetic factor. My dad was the same way. I think my son is the same way, and I didn't realize it at the time. But yes, foods do play a big part, and most of the time it's because they taste so good, or because they relieve that stress we have at that moment, where we can just kind of pig out, sit down, and relax, and that food kind of escalates that feeling of, okay, fine, I'm out of I'm not worried about anything, or I feel better. Either one.
Thanks, Red. Diane, how about you? What's your relationship with food like?
Oh, I'm horrible, but I'll start a little bit in my youth. Um, there was nothing greater in high school than all of us kids meeting and going over to this one shop that had the 1950s, counter, and we all ordered like 2 honey buns with extra, melted butter on top of it. I think I was in a sugar high for the rest of the day. And now I just look at it and think, I can't believe I ate that stuff. And then, the whole hamburgers and the whole 9 yards. And, but my emotional food, especially back then, but could still be that today, is the Dairy Queen double dip large ice cream cone.
What kind of ice cream, Diane?
It's that fountain that's not real ice cream, right? And they double dip it so it gets the chocolate all over it. And it just
love it.
It makes you feel really good. When you're sad or you're mad or something.
Oh, what about when you're glad or you're happy? Will you eat it then?
Well, then it's time for a massive, maybe 5 brownies with chocolate on top.
Oh, I love what you're sharing, Diane. I love it. Yum.
I'm really bad. So obviously I'm a yo-yo person when it comes to weight fluctuation, which is horrible. But
are you obsessed with it?
No. I mean, today I'm now going to a guy named Dr. Festi, and we're working on weight management as well as health and longevity. So
Well, on weight wise, I would have 2 triple meat, triple cheeseburgers a day back when I was a teen and early 20s.
Wow.
Wow. And a huge quart of root beer, not diet. And I never gained a pound. But again, metabolisms and things when you're younger versus when you get older, it's amazing how much things happen and change.
It's so true.
It is. But, and thanks for sharing, Diane. Something that I've mentioned before without saying my mother's name is that her entire diet is sugar. It's decades that it's been going on, and people, know that she loves her sweets. So it's interesting to me because she has been really healthy throughout most of her life. And, as we obviously get older, things happen. But it's interesting because when we think about genetics, she can have sugar for decades, but I can't. So that to me is interesting. And when it comes to sugar, I've given it up and then I've gone back to it and I've given it up. And yesterday I was conversing with Red, and there's this, I go for a walk after I do my solid core exercise, and there's a store that has the most amazing desserts, everything in there. There should be a big like black X over the store, macaroni and cheese, like it's all homemade. So I said to myself, do not go in the store. Do not go in, because you're going to go in and you're going to buy the stuff. So I didn't go in, but I'm going in today. I'm just telling you right now, I'm already thinking about it. I'm hating myself for it because
and you're already hating yourself. Oh my goodness.
I hate myself constantly because of food. It's really not a good thing. So let's go to the original question that I posed at the beginning. Red, you already know this, so you, unfortunately, my friend, cannot guess. Diane, when it comes to longevity, a scale of 1 to 100%, how much of a percentage do you think that genetics plays in how long you're going to live?
I would say around 90 some percent.
Red, tell us the answer.
Well, generally speaking, you'll find some authorities saying 20, maybe 30% might be a longevity issue, but you got to realize you have genes that are positive responders to longevity and genes that are negative responders. In other words, one will accelerate, make you look good, whatever. Anyway, but the answer is a gene, generally, any gene is about a 5% plus or minus. Some genes might be a little bit more, but generally speaking, genetic influence on the body is around 5%. Now, that 5% could also be a good gene and a bad gene. So you got to kind of balance those out. But with epigenetics, EPI genetics, these are our lifestyle choices. The foods we choose, the exercise we choose, the stress management we choose, the things that are choices in life. Those things either flip on or off the switch for a particular gene. So if exercise flips on a gene that you want and need for longevity, then that's the one you want to be flipping on. But if one of them is a gene that kind of leads to obesity, and it's not one, there might be a half a dozen or more genes that are kind of predispositioning in that direction, just as you might have one for a colon cancer, breast cancer, Alzheimer's, whatever. There's not just generally a single gene involved. And so you have different factors that are there. But as a general rule, a genetic effect on the body is about 5%.
That blows my mind. I had no idea. Because I'm sitting there going, now my grandma lived to 100, so maybe I'll have that gene. But then my dad only lived to 72, but if I get that gene, so.
And this doctor that I was referencing from the Howard Stern show, he said 4%. So it really started me thinking. And if we go back to what I shared about that rock example or the shell on the beach, if I say to myself, okay, I'm going to exercise like a psycho, which I always do. I mean, before I even walk into Solcore, I have to walk for 20 minutes to pump myself up because I know I'm going to be pushing myself to another level. But the point is, if I would just say to myself, okay, I'm going to eat macaroni and cheese and I'm having rice pudding. That's it. I'm having it. I'm going to enjoy it. But I don't. I say I'm going to have it. I hate myself for doing it because I'm so weak. Then I have to push myself even harder working out. So it's like that rock that's constantly getting beaten up. So I think there's something to be said about letting go and enjoying whatever it is. But I am not able to do that. So if anyone has
But part of the problem on the subconscious mind is it does not understand negative. So when you say I'm not doing something, the not is a word that's I am blank doing something. So you're actually telling yourself I'm going to be doing that. And when you use a future reference, it has no idea of the future. It just operates in the current time. So you're adding a negative, you're adding a future event. You're confusing your mind because it doesn't know what to do because it can't comprehend. So you're adding an extra dimension of complexity by saying I am not going, and you're referring to something future. And if you've done this before and failed, then that's already locked in your subconscious vault, which is sitting right there at the very front. So that every time you're doing something like that, it's going to, you failed at that before. I'm not going to let you fail again. And so because you're not going to do something, you're going to fail at not doing something because anyway, it's a very conundrum of different thoughts going through the brain. And so maybe it's one of those ones where you need to reflect and, I am eating healthy, or I am going to lose, half inch, whatever it may happen to be. There are ways of rephrasing things where you haven't had a failure at doing something like that, or you've had some success at doing something. Anyway, there are different ways. So you have that subconscious mind application on top of everything else that's going on. And habits are hard to break regardless. Take a look how much solid core stuff you do. That's a habit. There are good habits and bad habits, but those things are part of our lives. And you want to change something that's a habit, it's hard to do. You're talking about
you have
sugar.
To know your why.
You're talking about your sugar and your mom. Alzheimer's called type 3 diabetes because that sugar gets through the blood-brain barrier, and it's so much inflammation that it has an effect on the brain that becomes an issue, that we lose some of those neurons or the ability for them to process. So there's just a lot of things that are complicated there.
Very true. I also feel, and I've had relatives who have taken the stance that there's also the art of enjoying your life, which means you pick and choose. And I know you've spoken on longevity, and you're an expert when it comes to this area, that what we're doing today sets us up to live longer and live a life where we don't have somebody taking care of us. We're not in diapers. So we have to consider that. At the same time, we can also say to ourselves, okay, I'm going to make it to X age, whatever the age is. And once I get to that age, all bets are off. I'm ready to go. But until I get there, I'm living it up. So I think I'm not saying that I'm taking that perspective. I'm just saying, I think there are various ways that we can look at things. But I also think that what we do today, what we did when we were younger, for example, I don't know if either of you did this, but you would sit outside with aluminum foil so you could get a tan, or sun in, whatever that stuff was we used to spray, or sit outside with baby oil. I mean, can you imagine doing that today?
No.
Well, I've gotten sunburned before, but not because I put baby oil or tin foil. Being a redhead is just a very natural thing that you get fried in about 20 minutes. So I got to be super, super careful outside. And I had a really bad time in boot camp because I got literally a piece of bacon across the top of my head, very crisp, that I had to wear a hat, and I was the only one wearing a hat because the doctor ordered it. But the drill instructors, every one of them, took their opportunity to tell me that there was something wrong with me, that I had to wear a hat. Anyway, but that's another story. But
that's another show, actually. We could have a whole show on that, what that did to you.
But our love affair with food is one of those things that, I love certain things, but I find that some of them I give up easy, super easy. Ice cream and brownies. But there's some that are very difficult. I love pasta, but I can give it up. Bread, I find to be very difficult to give up. And so there's some things that are you don't think they're easy, but they really are. But there are other things that it's a fight to give up something. It really is.
And I think also we can justify certain things. For example, last night and this morning, I was starting to put together some plans. My 60th birthday is coming up this month. And I thought, oh no, that means there's going to be a lunch and then a dinner. And then the next day there's a dinner. And how much exercise am I? And I'm still like going through my mind. Like, I know the menu at the restaurant I want to go to for the lunch. I'm thinking, how many calories is that? Am I going to get a second workout? Like, it's insane. It's literally insane. But if you take the approach that, hey, I'm just going to enjoy myself, it seems like it would be a lot better approach than this ping pong ball match I have going in my head.
Well, there's some things about, I was on Atkins diet for about 6 years. I lost lots of weight, kept it off. But I was living in Germany the last couple of years, and I'd go down to Italy for a weekend, and I would gain 12 pounds because I was picking out on bread and pasta and stuff. I'd come back, and 2 weeks later, I'd be right back at my weight again. Because a lot of what we put on is water weight, especially when you give up carbohydrates. There's nothing there. But when I noticed that on Atkins, on any single day, a single meal I could pick out and not have a problem. So if I was in Germany or France or Czech Republic, it doesn't matter where, and I wanted to have a big pasta meal, I could have it. Single meal once a week, once every other week, absolutely no problem. So if that's your reward system and it's a one time only and it's not the norm of what you're doing, that's not going to affect you. So plan it accordingly. Okay, I'm going to have Mexican food. I'm going to have whatever it is, go out and enjoy it. But it's only that one meal. But there's not saying you can't have that, but literally cut everything in half and you leave it on the plate. That's even a harder thing to do than not even ordering it to begin with, because it's sitting there staring in the face. You can smell it. You've already tasted it. But there are things that we do have options on. And so maybe what you need to do is just have that one really big birthday party and you have a really good time at that one. And then you kind of have moderation for the other ones. You're saying, yeah, I really celebrated last night. I'm taking it easy right now, for any other events that you're at. That might be a way.
I think that makes sense. I also think, because you know how I am with my gold stars, it's also like you're getting an F the rest of the time, right? Because you're being punished because you're not doing the right thing on a regular basis. So I think it has to do with the lifestyle it's a lifestyle choice as opposed to picking and choosing. I'm going to eat sugar today. I'm not going to eat it tomorrow. It's kind of like, we know sugar is not good for us, even though it tastes so good. So just get rid of it. And I know before, when I've been off sugar, I didn't even think about it. I could care less about it. My mom's eating it. I'm like, I don't want that. I have no interest. Now I'm like, yeah, I'll take some of that. So I think it's just a matter of saying, how do you want your lifestyle to show up in your life, and how are you showing up in your lifestyle? What do you think?
Go ahead, Diane.
Oh, I was thinking about what you were saying. And, the thing about sugar is that you have it and you think, okay, you're just going to have it on Fridays, the big celebration, you finish the week. But then you have it and it's in your system, and then you start craving it more. At least that's what happens to me. And, but also, I just want to say, Red, I thought it was very interesting what you had to say about the light switch. You eat something and then you want this gene to react to something. I thought that was fascinating.
And when we have a lifestyle, it's something that we do every day. That becomes our habit of living. Whether you're exercising 4 times a week, whether you're stress management, breathing exercises, for 20 minutes every day, whatever it may happen to be, that's what we do. But when you get to our food choices, our diet, we tend to have a diet mentality rather than this is what I do every day.
Oh.
Now, when I look at food, okay, I want leafy green vegetables. Well, I don't have to have lettuce every single time. There are so many different kinds of leafy green vegetables that maybe one time you have these 3, and then later on that day or tomorrow you have these other 3, and so you have some variety within that. So it's not like you're having the exact same thing. I preach actually a lot about the Wall's protocol, where you have the leafy green vegetables and the cruciferous and whatever. But I modified Dr. Terry Wall's protocol on diet by not eating the same protein every single day. In other words, don't eat the same protein 48 hours in a row. So if you're having, chicken and beef today, don't have chicken and beef tomorrow. Have shrimp and something else tomorrow. But that's part of that, is to have the body get used to getting its amino acids from different sources, the same kind of things that we're doing. So if I'm having blueberries today, raspberries tomorrow, strawberries the next day, I'm having some variety, which helps us out a little bit. I could have spaghetti 3 meals a day and feel happy about it. There's no doubt in my mind, so long as there was bread with it. And we were in Italy. That's what I was doing. Spaghetti for breakfast, spaghetti for lunch, spaghetti for dinner, and restaurants serve spaghetti for breakfast.
Wow.
My wife and sister-in-law, brother-in-law, they could handle it for about 3 days, and then after that, they had to have something different. They just, but I can easily eat that. And when I was on Atkins, I loved Atkins. I really did, until I found out that it has a tendency to, because of my food choices, not because of Atkins. But when I went back, I read 5 books before I started it. And even after I got back and I knew I had a problem with osteopenia, I went back and read a couple of newer books that came out, and there's nothing in there talking about acidosis and loss of bone density when you're on a carbohydrate-free diet, because the blood pH changes. And when you start getting in a constant acidic mode because you're eating protein and fats and no carbohydrates, then all of a sudden that the calcium you have in your bones is now going to your bloodstream to keep that bloodstream at a constant level, 7.4 plus or minus 0.05. But that is something that I didn't know at that time. But had I known and put my emphasis into, okay, I need my leafy green vegetables, I need this, I need my berries, I could have easily done Atkins with a different focus and not had a problem with acidosis and osteopenia. So, but again, it's part of our learning. We just don't know.
Well, what I think is interesting as a follow-up to that, Red, is I've had different things for breakfast in my life. I was always a breakfast person. So it was a bagel with butter and American cheese. That was for a long time. Then it was, forget that, it's 5 Reese's cups. Okay, forget that. Every day, like the little ones.
Oh,
and
I think about the big ones too.
No, not the
Me
big
too.
ones, the little ones. And then it was yogurt. And then it was oatmeal. And in every case of those things that I mentioned, at some point in the near future, sometimes within an hour, I was exhausted. I'd be like, oh, I can't do anything. And so as I've gotten older, those things I don't eat those things, a bagel once in a while. But with the weight training that I do, I have to have energy to lift the weights that I'm lifting. So I do find that certain foods do not help me do that. And it's counterproductive. What are your thoughts about that?
Go ahead, Diane.
I don't know how to answer that. So.
Well, when you have carbohydrates, the energy is being stored as glycogen in the muscles. The extra energy is being stored in fat cells. And so as you start using up the muscle strength, the endurance, whatever you're doing, it's going to go back. And at some point in time, you're going to shift over into using fat. So what I learned on Atkins was I could go out and literally, in fact, I did this for a number of years. I could run 6-8 miles a day, literally. Half hour, 45 minutes. I loved it. It was just, I lived in New Orleans. It was nice and hot. I did a lot of hot, flat, and humid. To me, that's the perfect environment. And I'd go out and I'd run. I'd sweat a lot, and I loved it. I get over to Germany now on Atkins, and I get 2 miles into what I plan to be a long run. I'm out of gas. I have no more energy left because there's no glycogen going in, and I didn't quite adapt to burning the fat. Yeah, I lost inches, like they were just disappearing, but I didn't have the long-term endurance. Now I've talked to other people who've lived on keto. Yeah, it transitions where you can do that. I just never got to that level, but you're absolutely right that if you're going to be doing something, then the trade-off is if you're on intermittent fasting and you've been fasting for 15 hours, now you go to the gym and you're going to have something afterwards, you may not have that full energy bank to do what you want. But again, the trade-off is you're burning fat while you may not be burning as many hours doing what you want to do. So the trade-off is that I'm getting some really good exercise. I'm just not getting as much as I used to get. And so maybe that's a different way of looking at it, because your body is in ketosis, your fuel source is now fat, wherever that fat may be on your body. And to me, I lose fat around the neck, fat first. That's where I lose it. Don't ask me why. My gut would be whatever it was. I'm getting ready to take my aviation physical, and they slap that little thing around the neck to measure it. I lost 1.5 inches in my neck and almost about 1 inch in my belly. Well, that's not fair. And,
Whoop, bring it back up.
And so, we learn things over time, but yeah, that's true. So if you have your dozen donuts before you go in to train, there's 2 problems. Number one, you're going to have the exercise, but then again, you got that hypoglycemic low that you talk about after your 5 Reese's cups. An hour later, all of a sudden your head's you can't keep your eyes open.
Yeah,
see that a lot of times in corporate world. You go out and you have a big lunch that's mostly carbohydrate, whether it's rice or pasta or beans or what, it doesn't matter what it is. And all of a sudden you come back and, an hour after lunch, you can't keep your eyes open.
I think that's why in some countries where I lived, it's siesta time after the big lunch, and everything closed at 12 o'clock for lunch, and nothing else opened up until 4 o'clock.
Yep.
Everyone's passed out.
Yeah.
Red turns me on to this show called Alone. And it's a Netflix series, not a paid spokesperson. And I'm watching it every night. This is the Grizzly Mountain episode or series. And long story short, there's 2 people left, and I'm not going to say anything in case people are watching. But what's so interesting is that the people who came in with more weight on have lasted longer than the people who had very low body fat, because when they're not able to find as many calories as they need, or they can't get any protein, their body's living off of their fat. And the ones who don't have as much fat, they have nothing to live off of. And I really thought that was fascinating. They send in a medical team to weigh them periodically and do a check, and they have to pull up their shirt, and you can see they're not even aware, they're like skeleton. The one woman came in at 136 pounds, and day 50, she was 94 pounds. Ooh. I mean, that's serious weight for a woman.
That very much so is. Very much so.
So it goes right with what Red's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the issue there is the right kinds of food, because as you start listening to them, all of them are really focused on getting fat. and that fat, whether it comes from fish, but whether they kill an animal that has a lot of fat on it versus something like a deer that has almost none, that the fat is the long-term determiner of whether they stay or not, because they do lose a lot of weight, a lot of inches. And at some point in time, your body is literally eating itself because there's no other food out there. You need so many calories to do things. And even if you're just standing there and fishing and that's all you're doing, not expending very many calories, the body still has a basic need for so many calories per day. And it's going to get it from the muscles. And that, once it goes through the fat, it gets to the muscles, that's where they start having, okay, can't leave you in here anymore because you're at that point in time where your blood pressure is going up, this and this and this, and they yank them. They don't want it. I mean, they've been out there, 70 days, and they think they can stay a little bit longer. And then you have that one guy that had a hoard of food. I mean, he had food for 2 months. But
don't tell me what happens at the end. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Don't tell me.
And it's interesting because some people have food and they don't eat it. Other people can't get food and they can't eat. So it's interesting looking. And the thing that I find that most of them fail at is not because of the food or the $500,000 or the $1 million prize for being the last one, is the fact that they fail because of the relations, that they have no social intercourse with anything. They're there by themselves and alone. That is a major, major problem. And they start thinking about family or loved ones. And then, oh, I can't stand this anymore. I got to go. And they rationalize it. Well, I'm starting to lose weight. They could stay another 30 days easily, but they have already rationalized, okay, I'm not going to put myself in harm's way. I'm tapping out and going home. And, so we have the same thing here with our food. The same kinds of things that you're seeing them tap out about is because of that habit we have in our mind of certain things have to be in a certain way. And when we're taken out of that situation, we can't do it. And that's part of our problem. And
do either of you think if you were called upon to go alone, if you could rationalize the whole thing with your family, you could take the time, how do you think you would do alone, looking for your own food sources? Do you think you'd have the physical and mental strength and the will to do it, Diane?
I would like to think that I do, and that the spirit would guide me, but in reality, I'm too much of a social butterfly.
So that's a no for Diane. What about you, Red?
Well, I've been on a number of different survival courses with the military, getting ready for Vietnam. Also with other things that they train you as part of survival and whatever. And I know some of them. I mean, I used to love watching the show Naked and Afraid.
Me too.
And part of the problem is being a redhead, I can't handle that sunshine. So that becomes a problem. So yeah, I could probably do a lot of that stuff there, but I'd have a real problem with sunburn. No, absolutely. To me, a really cold night is like 84 degrees. I don't like snow. It's okay to watch on TV, but I'm not a snow person. And you put me someplace where there's a mountain, I say, well, to me, I like the highest thing in sight's a curb. So you put me someplace where it's cold and snowy, even if I have the skills and the equipment, I'm already at a -3 negative. I'm not even going there. Can I do it? Probably. When I went to Vietnam, the other people not going to Vietnam went to cold weather survival school. And that was, again, I'm not trained in that. Maybe had I gone there, that might have been different. But being gone a lot from the military, 6 months at a time, or, even in the summertime when you're going for 2 or 3 weeks, we have other people around us. So I'm not there with my family. I'm not thinking about it because I'm flying. I'm doing all sorts of other things. But I've thought about this. If I were there by myself, would I be as happy? And I don't think so. One of the things I did in New York City when I was stationed there for a couple of years, I was constantly thinking about my wife. And I said, I'd see something and, okay. And after about a couple of months, I said, I need to start capturing these things. So I went out and I bought a book that just had blank pages in it. And I would, every single day, I don't handwrite anything, but I would handwrite in the book something that I saw that connected me to my wife. I was, okay, let me just capture that memory. I said, okay, I'm going to do 100. I'll have 100 memories of things. So when we have our 25th wedding anniversary, that's going to be my gift to her. I'm pretty sure it was 25th at that time.
That's so sweet.
That's sweet.
78, 88. Yeah, that was right around that point in time that I was there. So that was part of my, may have been 26, but 25, 26 wedding anniversary. And I ended up with about 82, 83 thoughts. And I handwrote each one of those. And that was my gift of, we're gone, we're separated, but I'm still thinking of you all the time. And so those are things that she could instantly see. And because of the connection the two of us had. So that was one of the things I did to keep my mind in sync with what I was seeing, but still satisfying that need to share that event with somebody.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I was thinking, I seriously have been alone most of my life, and I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I have. And I think mentally, I absolutely could do it. I think for the show Alone, where they actually have clothing, I love that part. Survivor, where they have like they're in their the Victoria's Secret not paid spokesperson panties and bra for like 40 days. No. But what I find so interesting for whether it's Survivor or Alone, and if you don't watch Survivor is a group of 40 people or so, it's whatever it is, and then Alone is you're alone, like that's it. But on Survivor, when I think about relating to longevity and socialization, I love how they are planning on getting to the end and who they need on their team to help them get to where it is they want to go, which is to win the $1 million. And at the same time, they're going to have to vote these people off in order to be the only one left. And then Alone, you're competing against other people who you don't see because they're dropped somewhere else, and you don't know how long they've lasted. You don't know how many people there are, as opposed to Survivor, you see, because they have that, I forget what it's called at night where you vote people off. But anyway, my point is that for the Alone piece, I think I could do that, except I have literally no survival skills. Zero. None. I think that'd be a problem. So,
Well, they do train you a lot on a lot of different issues before you actually end up someplace alone. You're there for a couple, 3 weeks, and you're learning,
wow.
what are the bad snakes? What are the animals you can't eat? Is there a red tide where it's going to, they spend a lot of time, and they give you the cameras, but they show you how to work them in the phones, but they make sure that they're all messed up so that when you turn it's not working. So in a controlled environment, you're able to fix things yourself. So that when you're out there and you're recording things, if something goes wrong, you've already seen that error and you know what to do about it. So they just don't, quote, drop you alone, instantly. They spend a lot of time setting things up, making sure that they have the resources that if you call and say, hey, I have a problem, they're there, or they're able to get there as quick as they can. So it's you're alone, but there's a major infrastructure behind it that supports it. I have watched Survivor, but it's a long, long time ago. It was too much soap opera stuff in there and drama for me. But on the Naked and Afraid, you have two people, and it might be a pretty face, and after about 3 days, you can't stand that person's idiosyncrasies or something. And then after about 9 days or whatever, then all of a sudden, I really need that person, and they kind of accommodate. But there's very few that come in, meet each other, and instantly are able to go, 30 days without a problem. And so there's a lot of interpersonal dialogue, and when you can't vote somebody off and you have to live with them, there are things there that may or may not create a problem, and that's part of our psyche, that we have to stay. The problem may be our food, not the other person, and that food becomes our mental gymnastics that we got to go through in order. Well, am I going to walk on straight narrow beam and not fall into that pasta? I don't know.
I'm glad you brought food back up. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Jacalyn.
I was just going to say, I always wonder who's doing their waxing. So I'm thinking, come on, you've been there for a month and we don't see any hair growth on your legs. Come, it doesn't make any sense. Go ahead, Diane.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, what I was going to say is going back to what you started going back to food, Red, is that is it a good idea, and I'll share why in a second, the question, is it a good idea for people to see what kind of foods they're allergic to because you may not realize it?
I think food sensitivities and food allergies are very definitely a big thing. And what you're eating today doesn't mean that something can change in your life and become a problem. Case in point, I was living in New Orleans. I love tomatoes. And all of a sudden I started getting burning around my lips, and I couldn't figure it. It took me a while to figure out what caused it. I'd leave this one out. and it turned out it was tomatoes. And all of a sudden, okay, so fine. I went off them for 6 months, came back, and there were no problem. So I don't know that I had an allergy to it, but some people have sensitivities to gluten or sensitivities to dairy or sensitivities to something else. And yes, that's going to give you fatigue. It's going to give you kind of a semi-upset stomach. You're just not operating at 100%. And then sometimes it's almost more instantaneous. I would run a lot of races, 3 or 4 races a week in New Orleans. And one of the pleasures was going over and having a beer afterwards and solving the world's problems. Well, I would have, one beer, no problem at all. But it turned out that if I was having 2 beers, that second beer would give me literally before I finished it a headache. I mean, right down the middle, right up here. And okay, so I stopped drinking. And next time, it took me about 4 or 5 races. Okay, I'll have my 1 beer and then leave, and that was fine. But sometimes those things happen. And is it a preservative that's in that food, an additive? Maybe it's not the food at all. Maybe it's the way it's prepared. And so sometimes, yeah, you may have an allergy, an insensitivity, or something to it, but it's not necessarily that particular food. It may have been some processing issue. You see these signs in certain restaurants, or if you have a peanut allergy, beware, because our food is in the same machines as some of the others. And so I had a guy working for me, and one of his kids had a peanut allergy, and I says, "Is he wearing a bracelet?" And he says, "No." And I said, "If he has a peanut allergy and you know about it, why is he not wearing one? Because somebody else, when he's alone, may end up having, he needs to have a bracelet so that if the paramedics show up, they know now that might be a problem." And so I think it took him a couple weeks before he could get one. But if you know you have a problem, avoid it. Come back and just taste something. My wife can't eat pork, period. She gets sick literally within about 3 bites. It's just that's that quick.
Wow.
But if you have an allergy, is it a food you have to eat?
Yeah, I shared with you, I have an airborne shellfish allergy. So I'm really lucky because in Florida, when we do go out, which is not very often, we sit outside and then it's not a problem. But, when I was in the cold, which I'm with you, Red. I don't ever want to be in the cold. I like 85. I like humid. I want to be sweating. I sweat dripping off of me. I love it. So, anyway, we have to close out, unfortunately. I'm really enjoying this show, but our next show is coming up. So I'm going to spotlight you, Red. You have a new book. Tell us about it. We're trying to find it on Amazon. Is Amazon saying it's available today? What should we know?
Okay. Understanding the Causes of Alzheimer's is a book that at least on my author account, says it's live and available for purchase. They normally say 24 to 72 hours. I let it go last night, but as of right this minute, I can't find it on Amazon, but I expect it to be there later today. 99 cents. It goes through, essentially, I have over 40 articles I've written on Alzheimer's, and these are a compilation of those articles that go into different things that cause Alzheimer's. A lot of us think it's this or that. Well, actually, it's this or this or this or this or this or this or this and this and this and this. And so there are a lot of different pathways. And just because you nail that one down and you stop it doesn't mean all these other pathways are still working slowly down the path to some kind of disease. In some cases, you never can figure it out. Like what causes a headache? What causes high blood pressure? There's so many things that cause things, and for you to kind of lock them all in. But what I've done is given you a very wide spectrum of things that, okay, fine, I can tackle that particular problem easily. I can tackle that. And, well, now I'm talking to my doctor. What about these other things? Well, now maybe you have kind of a reference thing to say, well, this worked for a long time. What else can I do? But if you don't have something to talk about, and Dr. Google and Dr. YouTube have a lot of stuff out there to share, but we just don't take the time and energy to go look it up. So what I've done is I've done all the looking up. And as almost everything works, as soon as I'm ready to publish the book, I find something new. I've mentioned this to Dr. Jacalyn. I haven't mentioned it to Diane, but there's a couple terms that for our longevity, for our health, is autophagy and mTOR. But autophagy might be the primary cause when everything is said and done. When I'm looking, if I control this, I may control a lot of other things. But autophagy may be the underlying cause of why we have Alzheimer's, because of the nature of what it is. And I'm not going to go into the show. It's just a little hint out there. It's not in my book, but it's going to be in a blog very shortly. And it's going to be an appendum to my book. So, but Understanding the Causes of Alzheimer's, and hopefully it's going to be available later today. And as soon as my book cover comes in, hopefully today on the paperback, I'm going to try to get that as activated as possible. So maybe tomorrow the paperback might be available. Now, I haven't set a price on that, but it's going to be the lowest possible price I can set on Amazon, because I want to share this information with people as soon as I can.
And Red, also, you have a Talking Head series on how to publish your book for free.
I have done that before, yes, and that's going to be my next book. I started working on that last night. I got it maybe a third of the way through the book, doing my final edit and proof. And so that book is going to be out in a couple of weeks, of how to write and publish your book for free. And there's a series on Talking Heads. If you go into the USA Global TV and Radio Network, the archives and YouTube, and Talking Heads, red.olaughlin, there's a series that I did on that I walked you through the entire process. But writing a book is super simple. Editing is a little bit more difficult. Publishing is not bad. It's pretty simple, straightforward. Marketing is really the big problem, is trying to get that book out to everybody that needs to have it. And I talk about each one of those in a little bit of detail, so that as somebody starts writing a book, they can start seeing, okay, I need this train parallel. I need it going down. I need all these things happening at one time. I can't get to the end of the track at the destination, and all my support stuff hasn't left the last station yet. So there's a lot of things to think about when you're writing a book, and we go into that.
Thank you so much, Red. I appreciate it. And we have your information here, which I'll share for people so that they can keep an eye out on Amazon. Diane, tell us a little bit about what you have going on right now.
Oh my goodness. All day long. No, you can reach me at dianefloydbame.com to learn more about me. I write children's books and young adult historical fiction books, and I try to get involved in the community and help spread a little kindness.
Fantastic. All right. That was very short and sweet. Thank you, Diane.
You're welcome.
Okay. Our next show is coming up, and please check the private chat.
Wait.
Yes.
Doesn't somebody else here on this broadcast have a book coming out shortly?
Yes, that's correct. We do have a book coming out March the 26th. We actually will have our book party, our book launch party. It's also my 60th birthday. So please do join us for that. Yay. I'll see if I can find a picture of the book. Here it is. So this Lady Ella Has Afternoon Tea in London is coming out March 26th. You can pre-order it now, and you can get the paperback on March 26th. So thank you for bringing that up. I forgot. All right, we are signing off right now. And if you two could just wait backstage just quickly, and we'll have a short conversation. All right, everyone, please do reach out to Red and reach out to Diane, purchase their books. And thank you again for being here. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody.